I'd instantly get more confident because, I don't know. Yeah, people had higher standards in some things, but when it came to being on time, being a good interviewer, having the right technology, I think we were usually pretty high.
It's like, because I don't want to feel bad for the one thing that I love that I want to do. But I also had that second moment of, this is what I want. She makes me better. She makes me want to be better. She inspires me. And so it's this weird duality of, can you inspire others without holding a better standard? I don't know if you can.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode number 1377, 2 of the biggest growing pains. Today, for episode number 1378, you don't want to be the best person in the room. I had a very serious, intense coaching call today. And these 2 clients of mine, they're amazing. It wasn't super intense or super serious. It was serious, but nothing negative. I said, hey, I hate to be a pain in the ass, but that's kind of what you're paying me for. You're kind of paying me to be a pain in your ass. Mm-hmm. Because I have higher standards than you do when it comes to most of the stuff you do, just because I have to have higher standards in order to get to where we've gotten to. So we were talking about social media, and I said, I'm going to say the same thing I've been saying for the last month. We got to start posting on social media. I got to be a pain in the ass again. And I said, you know what we need to do? This is what we need to do. I need one of you to have a higher standard than the other person, and I need you to lead. I need you to lead this other person to post on social media. I said, I'm gonna keep it real with you. Sometimes Alan's a pain in the ass. Sometimes he's a pain in the ass. But when you have a higher standard in something and somebody has told you that they would like to get more results in that, you're supposed to be a pain in the ass. That's kind of how it works. It's just a friendly, hey, the speed limit's 65 and you're only doing 50. It's just a friendly one of those of, hey, remember how at the beginning of the year you said you wanted X to happen? You're not going to get X with what you're putting in. And I said, and we laughed about it. It was a really funny conversation. But I said, that's just kind of how it is. One of you has to raise your standards, because every time we leave, you go do your thing, and then I see you again 2 weeks later, but nothing's changed because I'm not around. The standard hasn't changed yet. So when we're talking about you don't want to be the best person in the room, obviously there's going to be a lot we dive into, but the thought behind this is you want to be around people who have higher standards than you. And you also, that really is it, because you're going to learn stuff. You're going to elevate your own level of self-improvement. You're going to learn more about you. There's going to be more opportunities. But here's the thing, going back to the previous episode about achieving goals versus social pain, the 2 kind of things people deal with when it comes to growth. If you have a negative association with somebody who has very high, your video froze, I got nervous. Somebody has very high standards and you run away from that, you're not going to reap the rewards of that. I used to have a fitness coach who his standards were drastically higher than mine. He didn't miss anything. And there was that part of me, anytime I was around him, who I would push myself to the next level just to keep up. And that's not a bad thing. Now, what I never did was I never villainized him for that. So that's deeper in the conversation, but that really is the goal.
Why not?
Because I hired him. You can't, it's interesting. You can't hire somebody and then villainize them for what you hired them for. You know what I mean?
No, I do. I think that's one of the reasons I adore coaching.
Yeah.
Because it gives me sort of permission to have higher standards than the other person.
That's really what people are paying for. And why do you go out to this is kind of the analogy I've used before, is what's the difference between McDonald's and the Capitol Grill? Capitol Grill, I don't know if the Capitol Grill is all over the place, but in New England, it's a very high quality steakhouse. The standards are different. The standards, that's all. The standards and the expectations and the experience and all that. Yeah.
This goes back to the last episode a lot. if you have, and I want to actually ask you a question on this, Kev. I remember how uncomfortable I was when I would work out with my old fitness coach. Because I knew he was watching everything and observing everything that I was probably doing wrong. And he lifted, 4 times as much as me, blah, blah, blah. But I also was super inspired by that, and it made me better. And it was really good for me, I think. Very rarely do I feel too far outside my comfort zone to where it's not productive. And I think that it's good for me to get around people that have higher standards than you and I. I also think that gets more challenging as you grow. If you keep growing and growing and growing and growing and growing and growing and growing, I know that there's certain people out there that have higher standards than us in each area, but I don't know if I've come across anyone who has higher standards than us holistically. And it makes sense. We have a holistic podcast, right? Health, wealth, and love. And I've talked about it before. I have mentors that are wealthy but not healthy. I have, mentor that's really healthy but not wealthy. And then I have healthy and wealthy mentors that are, not in love at all and take better care of their car than they do their own kids. And for me, no. I don't want to. Leading by example is everything to me. So later on in life, it gets more challenging to find people to hold the mirror and hold the standard above you. And that's been fascinating. But I want to ask you this. What was it like in the beginning to surround yourself with so many people that had such higher standards than you in the beginning? Because while I don't think that's true anymore, in the beginning, I mean, pretty much all the people we interviewed had higher standards than you, at least at the time.
It depends on what we're talking about. There was always this interesting moment where I would tell Alan, we would have a guest on, and they'd run like 5 minutes behind. And I always used to say to Alan, nice. Now I'm in the power position. Remember I used to say that?
Yeah.
I'd instantly get more confident because, I don't know. Yeah, people had higher standards in some things, but when it came to being on time, being a good interviewer, having the right technology, I think we were usually pretty high.
Yeah.
I mean, do we ever really see anybody who had nicer studios than us, even though we didn't have nice studios? Not really.
Yeah, not really.
Or the tech setup. Yeah. So I don't even know if I was thinking of that.
And then we were really focused on standard of character too.
Yes.
Like, who are you when no one's watching?
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. I don't think I felt outside of comfort with that. Now, money, a lot of our mentors had a higher standard of living than we did. That was hard.
Can you talk about that?
I mean, yeah, I think one of the reasons it was so hard is because I never really felt like they understood me. Like, when's the last time you were broke? Millionaire mentor. Like, when's the last time you were broke and you didn't have to think about money?
Or you mean you had to think about money?
Oh, yeah. And you had to think about money before you did it. It's been a long, long, long time. But I don't know. I never really connected that to a standard. I connected that more to other things. What they did. It wasn't really a standard thing for me. This was something you have been focused more on than I have, for sure.
What I want to share with the listeners first and foremost, let's talk about standards for a second. If you have a higher goal, that means you probably have higher self-belief or delusion. Okay? And if you do have that higher goal, it will require a higher standard. Kevin and I talk about the time when someone came to us and said, don't you think that's too many episodes? And for what we're shooting for, which is 1% improvement per day, no. 1 episode a day is perfect, actually, for what we're shooting for. And we had way higher podcast standards than that person. It's actually not even close. And I didn't like how someone with lower standards was trying to give us advice. That happens often, actually. And I don't like to learn from people who don't have a higher standard inside themselves than I do inside of me. Now, I remember one time, I'll never forget it, you told me that sometimes you're intimidated to be around Emilia, my girlfriend. And I do see why that is now. Because Emilia has the highest standards internally of anyone I've ever personally met. I know my mom is like always somewhat unconsciously tiptoeing around her because Emilia is very... She's very well put together, yeah. And she's always watching how you treat people and you know, she's just a very well put together, virtuous human. I was talking to my therapist earlier and I was just saying, like, I don't understand why so many people villainize her. She's like the sweetest person in the entire world. I've lived with her for almost 2 years and I've never once, not once, seen her do a negative thing that hurt anyone or anything. She won't even kill a spider. She wants me to like grab it and put it outside. You know, and like she never litters. She picks up trash. She's just the sweetest person in the entire world. But I came to realize one of the reasons why she gets villainized is because it's this standard thing. I think that people get frustrated with people who hold such a high standard because it's kind of like what we talked about in the last episode of, and on this episode, being a pain in the ass. If she's beautiful and hardworking and intelligent and educated and a sweetheart and virtuous and generous and wealthy, that's got to make people feel insecure.
Yeah.
And if their response to that is negative, I guess it doesn't make it right, but it does make sense. And I've felt that when I first started living with her, she has higher standards for learning than I do. Like, she'll read more books, and I would, like, watch a movie. And I remember feeling, like, a little bit of guilt of, like, she's studying while I'm, like, watching a Disney film here. And I remember having that, that's a little bit of pain in the ass. A little bit. It's like, because I don't want to feel bad for the one thing that I love that I want to do. But I also had that second moment of, this is what I want. She makes me better. She makes me want to be better. She inspires me. And so it's this weird duality of, can you inspire others without holding a better standard? I don't know if you can.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, what separates you from other people? It's kind of your standards. If you find that you're nicer, if you would self-identify as somebody who is really nice, if you're listening to this, you probably have higher standards in the way you treat people. Because when you don't meet that standard, you feel bad.
Yep.
So it's almost
and
like
you probably think a lot of people are mean.
Yeah, probably. It's almost like it's like a self-regulation thing. Your standards determine what is in alignment and what's not in alignment. But that's why being around certain people is so valuable. Because it's almost... The interesting thing is, for many of us, we don't really get to see someone. We only get to see what someone's created. But then when you spend time around someone, you actually get to see the standards that have created the thing.
Yeah.
That. Yep. I think that's a very big... It's a very big cheat code because it actually shows you what's behind the curtain. Now, here's the interesting thing. It goes both ways.
Yeah.
You and I have met people and said, oh my God, how the hell did they get so successful?
Yeah.
How did that happen? They're not a good person.
3 martini lunches, you know?
Come to find out, you don't have to be a good person to be very successful.
No,
depending on what you're doing. So
yep.
That's really the interesting thing. I don't know. I think maybe in retrospect, I would have changed the title of this because you don't want to be the best person in the room, because if you're the best person in the room, then you're not able to leverage other people's standards for your own benefit.
Yeah. My name is Alex, and I am a professional videographer who runs a production company out of Halifax, Nova Scotia. The one thing that I love about working with Alan is that right away he was able to come in and set up a system for me that makes sure that I am taking charge of my time and I'm taking the actionable steps that I need in order to progress towards my goals on a day-to-day basis. When I get off the phone with him, I always find that I am energized and I am getting the most out of what I do with my time.
Everyone has a higher standard in something. But I think what you can do, this is what I try to do, is I try to find the standard. So we talked on a recent episode about a mastermind group that we were in that Kevin was like struggling to be coached by someone who, that was really fun for me. But I actually went to the one arena where he had a higher standard than me, where he had faced a lot of the stuff about not having a father and his relationship with his father, I should say. And I hadn't at that point, had the courage to message my stepdad. And so I went to the one place that I knew he was ahead, for sure. And because that's how you grow. What I realize now in hindsight is that's dangerous, because if you're always going to the one place that you're the weakest, people will perceive you as that. And so he saw himself a little bit as a mentor after that. And it's like, no. But like that one area, and then after that, he's like, do you want a business mastermind? And it's like, no, not really. Like, I mean, if you want to coach with me, we can, but no. And again, as arrogant as that might have sounded, it's important to know where you're at. Like, you got to know where you're at. And I want to share this as well. I was with Kev at the Next Level Hope Foundation this past weekend, and it was so much fun. It was way more successful than we thought it was going to be. It was amazing. So strong work. Thank you so much, everyone who contributed. And I told Kev, I said, and I wish that I had told you this in the past, because you used to be the guy. Like, Kevin was the fitness guy. I mean, he had the highest standards. You were always the most in shape. You were always the leanest. You were extremely athletic. You were super hardworking, and you used to inspire me, but I never went and told you that. And ironically, what I ended up telling him was when, basically after Next Level Hope Foundation, I kind of cried behind the scenes a little bit of, dude, I used to feel like your standards were higher than mine, and I don't think that's true anymore. And not to take anything from you, but I had another moment during that moment of, well, I never really told him how much he's inspired me before, at least not maybe as much as I should have. But I think that that's one thing I want to get across here is, Kev, you used to inspire all of us, 100% in fitness. And it was hard to lose that a little bit of like, okay, so Kev's standard is not what it used to be. And it's gone way up in business, way up in relationships, way up in everything else, way up in money, way up in character. But it's gone down in fitness. Because that used to be a big part of your whole world. And that's what I want to share with everyone is you are inspiring people with your standards. They just might not be telling you, because I didn't tell you. I mean, I thought I was showing it.
Yeah, I'm sure I think you did. I don't know if it was ever that straightforward, but I'm sure you showed it in other ways. I don't remember. I
don't think I hid it. I definitely don't feel like I'm the type of person who hides my admiration. But I don't think I was like, hey, Kev, like, you inspire me constantly. And you've made me better in fitness because of your own standard. And I don't like people who don't lead by example. For me, you were a big part of the people that I looked up to in fitness. It was you, Matt, and Nate. And it was hard for me to lose that. Nate and I aren't as close anymore. And that's by choice. Matt and your standard isn't the same as it was, and it makes sense because you've both evolved as men. But I'm trying to hold a higher standard than I used to hold, and that's challenging because I used to have all of you kind of raising the bar for me. And now I have to raise my own bar, which is way harder.
Well, and then we had a conversation, and I said, Alan, it's not my job to inspire you. I didn't say it like that.
No,
but it was like, I think that's the next step. And here's the interesting thing too. It's interesting how I don't know if your standards will ever go from like 10 to 5 overnight, but they can slowly change negatively without you knowing.
Yeah, it's alarming.
Like 10, I have a 10 out of 10 standard. It's like 9.6. And then eventually that is the truth is I'm not happy with where I am physically. Definitely not. And I have my goals and I'm on now, but it's Yeah, there's no way 26-year-old Kev would ever let 27-year-old Kev look the way I do today. No way. No.
What would 26-year-old Kev say?
I don't know. Get your shit together. Probably.
Yeah.
That's
the only 26-year-old Kev had lower standards, correct me if I'm wrong, in everything else.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, but he had higher standards in fitness, yeah?
Yeah, for sure.
That, to me, same. I look at my 28-year-old self, best shape of my life, and I had lower standards back then for who I spent time with, lower standards for my habits, lower standards for business, lower standards for character, lower standards. And they weren't low standards, but they were lower than they are now. My fitness standards were higher. And to me, that is deeply painful.
Yeah.
My 28-year-old self would kick my ass.
But it's
and
hard,
say,
though.
get it together, man. Yeah, of course.
How do
different
you...
circumstances, yeah.
Yeah, because it's almost like, and we always find a way to talk about belief. It's not that I don't believe I can ever look like I used to.
But you don't believe it'll be worth it.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm willing to do what it takes. That was so hard.
Oh, yeah, it was brutal.
I can't imagine doing that.
And what we do.
And everything else. Today, so I've been dieting for 3 days. Eating 1,780 calories, I think, right now. And today, I opted for extra sleep. I got a 91 sleep score. I needed it. I haven't been sleeping super well. I've been getting up. It's been just getting back into the gym is a whole thing. Go figure. So I went to the gym at after our podcast this morning. I had a block and I was like, all right, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to get some boxing in and do some cardio. I come back and I have a meeting immediately. I'm still wearing my gym clothes right now. I'm still in my gym clothes that I was wearing earlier. What I wear when I box, I just wear a big t-shirt. So I come back, I'm on a meeting immediately. I walk in the door, I put my stuff down, I come into the office, I shut the door, I turn my stuff on. 2 minutes later, I'm on a meeting. Then after that meeting, I have a half hour between my next call, so I made food. I need to refuel. I literally had 4 minutes after I finished my meal to go to the bathroom, refill my water, and get on my next call. It is so humbling. It is so humbling to try to do everything.
Yeah.
And I like working out in the morning, not at night. So it's like...
being in shape feels like a full-time job.
It really does. And again, really I understand this is it's not a super... It's probably not a super easy problem to sympathize with. I understand it. In the grand scheme of things, there are much bigger problems. But I want to be in better shape. I really, really, really do.
Same.
It's just the standards fell to allow other standards to raise. And I don't know. Yeah. Is there another way? I don't know.
If you look at the amount of time in a day, right? So you sleep 8 hours. You should, I think. And then you have 16 hours left. Where you allocate that time and effort has to be spread up, right? If you and I order pizza, we only each get half. Or I get 80%, you get 20%. So
that's probably what's for best right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can have 80%.
Well, I am in a bulk. But the answer is, this is another episode, so we won't go down the rabbit hole here, but it is possible to work smarter in less time and be more effective in less time and to design your life to where fitness becomes a higher standard than it has been lately.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't want us blaming COVID. We've talked about this too much. But after COVID, that's when the slow standard slipping happened for both of us.
Yeah.
And as your standards slipped, so did mine. And all I know is, are our standards going in the right direction? And so that's the question for the listeners. Where are your standards for health? Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. Where are your standards? Are you around other people with higher standards than you? If not, why not? Where are your standards for wealth? Are you making more money today than you used to make? Are you making less money today than you used to make? Why might that be? And then love. Are your standards ridiculously high for your relationship, or have you let the law of familiarity creep in and now you're 5 years in and it's not as big a deal, but it's slowly slipping. And you don't want your partner to wake up one day and go, honestly, you're not really treating me the way you once did. Our relationship doesn't have the fire and the passion it once did. It is so difficult to holistically hold standards.
Yeah.
And Kevin and I are empathizing with that because we feel the same way. You know, it's so difficult. It's difficult to succeed in any one of these areas, never mind all three simultaneously.
The fitness thing used to be very easy. It wasn't that hard. Back then, it didn't seem that hard.
Yeah.
You know, it was probably, I mean, I was putting in more effort, obviously, but there was less things going on. It's just, it's so interesting.
When you only have one podcast a week, it's not as difficult.
It wasn't. No, a couple coaching calls, one podcast. You know, a little Call of Duty.
Little Call of Duty.
You know, a little weed every day. I'll smoke a little weed every day. You know, whatever. It is what it is.
Little mobility.
I did a lot of mobility, but
so standards.
What's
the next level lesson?
I'm going to share that in a second. Here's the interesting thing. I have been less productive this week, for sure. 100% in the business. Now, I've been making sure I'm moving the right needles, and I'm very conscious of that. But I've noticed, like, oh my goodness, I'm definitely not the same.
Yep.
I can't keep up with, like, because that's. So now what has to happen is I have to raise a new standard for business paired with fitness, paired with my relationship, because now that's 2 hours a day that I'm losing for the gym or whatever mobility.
You have to focus on higher leverage tasks.
Yeah. And we won't get into that because
we won't get into that on this episode, but we should at some point do an episode about group coaching. We did peak performance and productivity last night. Let's pick the biggest small nugget from that and try to do an episode because we just revamped the whole curriculum. Yeah. But I do think there's we haven't done a productivity episode in a long time.
You missing it?
Definitely.
All right,
and it sounds like you might need a little pick me up.
Dare you? I probably do. Well, we redesigned my system of success recently, so I'm actually capable of executing against it. Speaking of group coaching, we have another round starting on July 11th.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
You have forgotten the next level lesson.
Oh, yeah, the next level lesson. My apologies. I would say sit down and under health, wealth, and love, what was your standard? What was your standard at the beginning of the year, and what's your standard now? And ask yourself, are the results going in the right direction or the wrong direction? And if your standard was higher at the beginning of the year and now it's lower, that's why. Again, same. I know that. I'm not proud of what I've created physically, but it's interesting how over time it lessens a little bit. You know, so that would be.
And then you wake up one day and you're like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah. Oh my god, what has happened?
What has happened? But it also happens in the other direction when you're slowly increasing next level, and then all of a sudden you've got a brand new BMW and a successful business.
170 pounds is my commitment. I had a moment today where it was like, "Oh my god, I'm so hungry," but I need to do what I need to do. I need to do what I need to do in order to get the result I want.
Do it for the Belgian waffles, my friend.
The Belgian waffles. Yeah, I'm going to have a lot of waffles. Belgian, not Belgium. Belgian.
Oops. I don't know, man.
Group coaching. Round 11. Starting July 11th. We have completely revamped it and said, okay, what is the best stuff that we can teach? And what's really going to land, inspire, impact? What is going to create the most change? That is really the ultimate goal for us. I want it to be a positive experience where you learn about yourself, you learn about other people, and you leave every call with a tactic, but also an understanding of yourself. If you sat me down and said, what's made the biggest difference between old Kev 6 years ago and this Kev, it's self-awareness. And we talk a lot about that, understanding yourself at a deeper level. When you understand yourself, you understand everything else. That's just the way it works. So, and like Alan said, we'll talk about money and relationships and productivity. I'm very excited because we revamped it, and I had quite a large responsibility in the revamp. I feel pretty good about it. So, July 11th, Group 11. Link will be in the show notes. Please reach out to Alan at nextleveluniverse.com, or Kevin at nextleveluniverse.com. We will give you the discount code, and it ends up being $96.60 per month, I believe.
Only for listeners.
Yes.
Only for listeners. Please reach out. So we have a blog. So if you're out there and you're looking around at your life and you're saying, I'm not as healthy as I want to be, I'm not as wealthy as I want to be, I'm not as in love as I want to be, I just wrote a blog called How to Create the Life Outcomes You Actually Want. On the last episode, we talked about the two pains. Either your deepest pain is social and you feel unlikable and you feel like, you don't get along with others easily, or you don't feel like you achieve your goals very easily. This is for the people who feel like they struggle to achieve their goals. That's why I wrote this article. This blog. The Next Level blog, the link will be in the show notes. How to create the life outcomes you want. It will definitely, I promise you, it will get you thinking differently and get you more direction towards your goals, and it will help you create the outcomes you want.
Tomorrow, for episode number 1379, are you using your imagination to your advantage? One of my favorite quotes ever of all time that I think I created. I'm sure a human has put these words together in this way before, but your reality becomes the parts of your imagination you hold onto and pour into the longest. That's both positive and negative, right? If you're imagining negative things happening, you might not even take action, or you might end up getting negative things. So we're gonna dive into that for episode number 1379. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Keep those standards high. Next Level Nation.